John Miller sat against the brick wall of First National Bank. His old army jacket was zipped up to his neck. The morning air was cold, and his fingers felt stiff. He pulled his worn blanket tighter around his legs. The small cardboard sign next. To him read, "Veteran, any help is welcome, God bless." People walked by on their way to work. Most did not look at him. Some walked faster when they got near. A few kind souls dropped coins or dollar bills into his small plastic cup. John always said thank you, even when people pretended not to hear him. This spot by the bank was good. It had an overhang that kept the rain off. The morning sun hit it just right, warming the wall behind his back. John had been coming here for 3 months now. The security guard, a young man named Rick, usually let him stay as long as he was quiet and clean. But today was different. Rick wasn't working. Instead, a new guard stood at the bank doors. He kept looking at John with a frown. Twice already, he had come over to tell John he couldn't sit there. Twice John had politely moved a few feet away, only to slowly make his way back to his warm spot when the guard went inside. John wasn't trying to cause trouble. He just didn't have anywhere else to go. The shelter across town was always full, by early evening. The park benches had armrests placed in the middle, making it impossible to lie down. The police had cleared out the small camp under the highway bridge last week. This spot by the bank was one of the few safe places left. A woman in a business suit walked by and dropped a $5 bill in John's cup. "Get yourself some breakfast," she said with a small smile. John thanked her and thought about the diner, 2 blocks away. They had a $2 breakfast special before 9 a.m. His stomach growled at the thought of hot eggs and toast. As John was about to get up, a police car pulled up to the curb. Officer Peter Grant stepped out. John knew Officer Grant. He was usually fair with the homeless people downtown. Sometimes he even carried granola bars to hand out instead of moving people along. "Morning, John," Officer Grant said as he approached. "Got a complaint about you today." John nodded. "Morning, officer. Is it the new security guy? I'm not causing any trouble." Bank manager called it in himself this time. Says customers are complaining. Officer Grant looked tired, like he'd been working all night. "I'm going to need you to move along." John sighed. "Where to, officer?" "They closed the camp. Shelter's full." "Can't I just stay till the sun moves? It's awful cold in the shade." Officer Grant shook his head. "Not today, John. Manager's watching from the window. I need to see you pack. Up and move." Slowly, John began gathering his few belongings. His blanket went into his old backpack. The small cup with about $12 in change and bills went into his pocket. As he was rolling up his cardboard sign, the bank door opened and the manager walked out. "Is he leaving?" the manager asked Officer Grant. He was a short man in an expensive suit. He didn't look at John as he spoke. "We've had 3 customers. Complained just this morning." "He's packing up now, Mr. Davis," Officer Grant replied. "Give him a minute." Mr. Davis frowned. "This is a place of business, not a homeless shelter. We can't have people like him sitting out here scaring away customers." "I'm not scaring anyone," John said quietly. "Just trying to stay warm." "If you want to stay warm, go to a shelter," Mr. Davis snapped. "This is private property." "Actually, sir," Officer Grant corrected, "this sidewalk is public property. But there is a city ordinance against loitering, which is why I'm asking him to move along." Mr. Davis crossed his arms. "Well, he needs to hurry up. I have a meeting with important clients in 15 minutes, and I don't want them seeing this." Something in the way Mr. Davis said "this," like John was a piece of trash, not a person, made anger rise in John's chest. He had been pushed around, moved along, and treated like he was nothing for too long. "I fought for this country," John said, his voice stronger now. "Did 2 tours in Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq, and now I can't even sit on a public sidewalk?" "Thank you for your service," Mr. Davis said without meaning it. "But that doesn't give you the right to camp outside my bank." Officer Grant put a hand on John's shoulder. "Come on, John, it's not worth it. Let's just move along peacefully." John shrugged the hand away. "Where am I supposed to go? Tell me that." "Where?" A small crowd was gathering now, the morning rush of people heading to work. had slowed to watch the scene unfolding. Among them was a young woman named Lily Parker. She was a junior reporter for the local newspaper, always looking for stories that mattered. Something about the old man in the army jacket caught her attention. She pulled out her phone and started recording. "Sir, I'm going to ask you one more. Time to move along," Officer Grant said, his voice firmer now. "Don't make this difficult." John stood up straight. For a moment, something of the soldier he once was showed in his posture. "I'm not trying to make trouble, but I'm tired of being treated like I'm nothing. I served this country. I worked construction for 15 years after that until I got hurt. Paid my taxes, did everything right, and now I'm trash to be swept away?" Mr. Davis looked at his watch. "Officer, my clients will be here any minute." Officer Grant reached for John's arm. "Time to go, John." John pulled back instinctively. "Don't touch me, I'm going." As John bent to pick up his backpack, Officer Grant tried to help him along by taking his other arm. It was meant as assistance, but to John, who had been pushed around too many times, it felt like force. He pushed back against the officer's chest, not hard, just enough to create space. "He's assaulting an officer," Mr. Davis shouted, much louder than necessary. Everything happened quickly after that. Officer Grant, surprised by the push, grabbed John's wrists and turned him around. The handcuffs came out. John, confused and scared, tried to explain he didn't mean any harm, but the words didn't matter anymore. The crowd grew larger. Phones came out to record. Mr. Davis stood with a satisfied look on his face. "John Miller, you're under arrest for resisting arrest and assaulting an officer," Officer Grant said, reciting the words like he had said them 100 times before. As Officer Grant led John to the police car, their eyes met. There was regret in the officer's gaze, but it was too late to take back what had happened. The system was now in motion. "This isn't right," John said quietly as he was placed in the back seat of the police car. "I didn't do anything wrong." Across the street, Lily Parker stopped recording. She had seen the whole thing, the unnecessary escalation, the bank manager's smugness, the sad resignation in the old veteran's eyes. This wasn't just another homeless person being moved along. There was a story here. A story about how a man who had served his country could end up handcuffed in the back of a police car just for trying to find a warm place to sit. As the police car pulled away, Lily made a decision. She would follow this story. She would find out who John Miller really was and what had happened to him. Something told her there was more to this homeless veteran than met the eye. The crowd began to disperse. The bank manager went back inside. The day continued as if nothing had happened. But for John Miller, everything had changed. He was now in the system, facing charges that could keep him locked up or push him even further to the margins of society. What no one knew, not Officer Grant, not Mr. Davis, not even Lily Parker, was exactly who John Miller had been before he became homeless. They didn't know about the medals in his backpack wrapped in an old t-shirt. They didn't know about his acts of heroism that had saved lives. They didn't know that the quiet, homeless man they had just watched being arrested was actually a decorated war hero whose name, when revealed, would soon stun everyone in the courtroom, especially the magistrate who would hear his case. The county jail was cold and smelled of bleach and sweat. John Miller sat on a thin mattress in a cell he shared with 2 other men. One was sleeping. The other paced back and forth, talking to himself. John stared at the gray wall and tried to remember the last time he had been inside a building for this long. After his arrest, they had taken his backpack. That worried him. Everything he owned was in that bag, including the small metal box with his medals. The thought of losing those medals made his stomach hurt. They were the last proof that he had once been someone who mattered. Outside the jail, Lily Parker sat in her car making phone calls. As a junior reporter, she had to convince her editor that this story was worth following. "It's just another homeless arrest, Lily," her editor said over the phone. "We get those every day." "This is different, Joe," Lily insisted. "The guy's a veteran. The whole thing was unnecessary. The bank manager practically forced the officer to arrest him. Do you have it on video?" "Yes, I recorded most of it." "Fine," Joe sighed. "You can follow up, but I want something by tomorrow or you're back on covering the school board meetings." Lily smiled. That was all she needed. Her next call was to the public defender's office. She needed to know who would be representing John Miller. At the same time, in the public defender's office, Samantha Reeves sat at her desk surrounded by stacks of files. At 28, she was one of the newest attorneys in the office. This meant she got all the cases no one else wanted. Her supervisor, Alan Morris, dropped another file on her desk. "Got a new one for you," he said. "Homeless vet, arrested for resisting and assaulting an officer. Should be straightforward. Plea him out, get time served." Samantha took the file. "What's his name?" "John Miller. Arraignment is tomorrow morning." Samantha opened the file and looked at the police report. It was brief and vague. According to Officer Grant, John Miller had become aggressive and combative when asked to move from his spot outside First National Bank. The report claimed Miller had pushed the officer, which led to his arrest. There was something about the report that didn't sit right with Samantha. The language was too formal, too careful. In her short time as a public defender, she had learned to spot when officers were covering themselves in their reports. She checked the intake form. Under employment, someone had written, "None, homeless." Under military service, there was a simple "Yes, Marines." No details about when he served or for how long. No mention of combat or rank. The next morning, Samantha arrived at the jail early to meet her new client. She was led to a small room with a metal table bolted to the floor and 2 chairs. A few minutes later, a guard brought in John Miller. John looked older in person than in his booking photo. His face was weathered with deep lines around his eyes. His gray beard was neatly trimmed, which surprised Samantha. His orange jumpsuit hung loose on his thin frame. "Mr. Miller? I'm Samantha Reeves, your public defender." John nodded and sat down across from her. His back was straight, his hands folded on the table. Despite his situation, he had a dignity about him that caught Samantha's attention. "Can you tell me what happened yesterday?" she asked. John told her about sitting outside the bank, about the manager complaining, about Officer Grant asking him to move. His voice was clear and his story was organized. He didn't ramble or make excuses, he simply told what happened. "I shouldn't have pushed him," John admitted. "That was wrong, but I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I just wanted some space." "How hard? Did you push the officer?" Samantha asked. John held up his hand, palm out. "Just like this, just to make space between us. I didn't shove him or try to hurt him." Samantha made notes. "The report says you became aggressive and combative." John shook his head. "No, ma'am, I was frustrated, but I wasn't aggressive." "Were there witnesses?" "Lots of people were watching, some had phones out." Samantha wrote this down. Videos could be very helpful. "Mr. Miller, your intake form says you served in the Marines?" "Yes, ma'am. 12 years. 2 tours in Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq." "What was your rank when you left the service?" "Staff sergeant." Samantha looked up from her notes. That was higher than she expected. "And when did you become homeless, Mr. Miller?" John's eyes dropped to his hands. "About 3 years ago, after the accident." "What accident?" "I was working construction, scaffolding collapsed, hurt my back bad, couldn't work anymore. Used up all my savings on medical bills, couldn't pay rent. You know how it goes." Samantha did know. She had seen it too many times. One bad break could send a person's life spiraling downward. "Do you have family who could help?" "Had a wife once. She left during my 2nd tour. No kids. Parents are gone. Brother died in a car accident 5 years ago." Samantha felt a pang of sadness. John Miller was alone in the world. "What about VA benefits? As a veteran, you should qualify for help." John gave a small, bitter laugh. "Tried that. Got lost in the paperwork. They kept sending me from one office to another. After a while, it just seemed easier to give up." Samantha made more notes. This was a common story among homeless veterans. The system designed to help them was often too complicated to navigate, especially for someone already struggling. "Okay, Mr. Miller, here's what's going to happen. You have an arraignment this morning. The judge will formally read the charges against you and you'll enter a plea. The prosecutor will probably offer a deal. Plead guilty, get time served. And you can leave today? John nodded. Sounds good to me. I just want to get my backpack and get out of here. That would be the easy way, Samantha agreed. But I'm not sure it's the right way. John looked at her with confusion. What do you mean? Something about your case doesn't add up. The officer's report is vague. You say there were witnesses with phones. I'd like to look into this more before you take a plea. But I'd have to stay in jail longer? Possibly, but if we can show the officer overreacted, we might be able to get the charges dismissed completely. That would be better for you in the long run. John thought about it. My backpack. They took it when I was arrested. It has everything I own in it. I'll make sure it's secure, Samantha promised. Is there something important in it? John hesitated. My medals. They're in a metal box wrapped in a t-shirt. Medals from your military service? John nodded but didn't elaborate. Before Samantha could ask more questions, the guard knocked on the door. Time's up. Arraignment starts in 10 minutes. As they walked to the courtroom, Samantha made a decision. She wasn't going to let John take a plea deal. Not yet. Not until she knew the full story. The courtroom was busy that morning. Samantha and John sat in the back waiting for his case to be called. While they waited, Samantha noticed a young woman sitting a few rows ahead, taking notes. She recognized her as Lily Parker, a reporter for the local newspaper. When John's case was finally called, they walked to the front of the courtroom. The judge, a tired-looking man named Judge Wilson, barely looked up from his papers. John Miller, charged with resisting arrest and assaulting an officer. How do you plead? Before John could speak, Samantha stepped forward. Your Honor, at this time my client pleads not guilty. We request a preliminary hearing. The prosecutor, a young man named Bill Foster, looked surprised. These cases almost always ended in plea deals. Your Honor, the state is prepared to offer. Time served if the defendant pleads guilty now, Foster said. The offer is noted, Samantha replied. But my client maintains his innocence and wishes to exercise his right to a hearing. Judge Wilson sighed. Preliminary hearing set for 1 week from today. Bail? Your Honor, Mr. Miller has no money for bail. He is homeless, but he is a military veteran with no prior record. We ask that he be released on his own recognizance. Foster shook his head. The state opposes release. The defendant has no fixed address and could be a flight risk. Mr. Miller served his country honorably for 12 years, Samantha argued. He's not going to run from these charges. Judge Wilson considered this. Bail is set at $500. Next case. As the bailiff led John away, he looked at Samantha with confusion. Why did you do that? I could have been out today. Trust me, Mr. Miller. I think there's more to your story than a simple guilty plea, and I'm going to find out what it is. After court, Samantha noticed Lily Parker following her down the hallway. Ms. Reeves, I'm Lily Parker from the Daily News. I witnessed Mr. Miller's arrest yesterday. I'd like to talk to you about his case. Samantha stopped. You saw what happened? I recorded most of it on my phone, Lily said. And I don't think it happened the way the police report says it did. Samantha smiled. Maybe she had found an ally in her quest to uncover the truth about John Miller. What neither woman knew yet was just how important John's story would turn out to be, or how the revelation of his full military record would soon shock everyone in town, especially the magistrate who would eventually hear his case. Samantha Reeves and Lily Parker sat in a small coffee shop across from the courthouse. Lily's laptop was open, showing the video she had taken of John Miller's arrest. Watch the officer here, Lily said, pointing to the screen. John barely touches him. It's more like he's trying to keep his balance than pushing the officer. Samantha nodded as she watched. The video clearly showed that John had not been aggressive. Officer Grant had grabbed his arm, and John had put his hand up, making contact with the officer's chest. It was nothing like the assault described in the police report. This is very helpful, Samantha said. Can you send me a copy? Of course. Lily closed her laptop. There's something else. I talked to some of the regular shop owners near the bank. They all know John. They say he's always polite, never causes trouble. The owner of the diner down the street even lets him use the bathroom to clean up sometimes. So why was the bank manager so determined to have him removed? Lily frowned. Apparently, a wealthy customer complained that morning. Said having homeless people outside made the bank look bad. The manager, Davis, is new, trying to impress the higher-ups. Samantha wrote this information down. So John was arrested basically because he was bad for business. Exactly. Lily took a sip of her coffee. I want to write a story about this, about how we treat homeless veterans, but I need more information about John. Do you know anything about his service record? Samantha shook her head. Not much. He told me he was a staff sergeant in the Marines. Did tours in Afghanistan and Iraq, but he doesn't like to talk about it. That's common with veterans, Lily said, especially those who saw combat. My father was in the first Gulf War. He never talks about it either. Samantha checked her watch. I need to get back to the office, but let's keep in touch. I'm going to try to get the charges dismissed at the preliminary hearing next week. After leaving Lily, Samantha went to her office and looked at John's file, again. Something was bothering her. John Miller didn't seem like a typical homeless person. His speech was clear and organized. Despite living on the street, he kept himself as clean as possible. And there was that military bearing he had. Back straight, eyes forward, yes ma'am and no ma'am in all the right places. She decided to dig deeper. As his attorney, she could request his military records. It would take time, but it might help his case. She filled out the necessary forms and sent them off. The next day, Samantha visited John in jail again. He looked tired. How are you holding up? She asked. Been better, John admitted. Don't sleep much in here. Too noisy. I saw the video of your arrest, Samantha told him. It's clear you didn't assault Officer Grant. I'm going to use it at your hearing. John nodded but didn't seem excited by the news. Is something else bothering you? Samantha asked. My backpack, John said. Did you find out where it is? It's in the property room at the police station. I checked yesterday. Everything is still there, including your metal box. John visibly relaxed. Thank you. Mr. Miller, can I ask what's in that box? You seem very concerned about it. John was quiet for a moment. Just some things from my time in the service. Nothing valuable to anyone but me. Samantha decided not to push. I've requested your military records. It will help to show the judge your service history. For the first time, John looked alarmed. All of my records? Yes. Is there a problem with that? John shook his head slowly. No. No problem. Just been a long time since I thought about all that. When Samantha left the jail, she was more curious than ever about John Miller's past. While Samantha worked on John's case, Lily was busy with her own investigation. She went to the First National Bank and asked to speak with Mr. Davis, the manager. I'm writing a story about the arrest that happened outside your bank, she told him. I'd like to get your side of the story. Davis looked uncomfortable. There's not much to tell. We had customer complaints about a homeless man loitering outside. I called the police, as is bank policy. Did you see him assault the officer? Well, not exactly assault, but he was resistant and uncooperative. So you didn't actually see him push the officer? Davis shifted in his seat. Look, I was just doing my job. This is a place of business. We can't have homeless people sitting outside all day. Even if they're veterans who served our country, Davis had no answer for that. After leaving the bank, Lily went to the police station. She had filed a request for the body camera footage from Officer Grant. To her surprise, she was told the footage was unavailable due to technical issues. What kind of technical issues? Lily asked the desk sergeant. I don't know, ma'am. That's just what the report says. Lily found this very suspicious. She decided to try to speak with Officer Grant directly. She waited outside the police station until she saw him leaving at the end of his shift. Officer Grant? Lily Parker, Daily News. Can I ask you a few questions about the arrest of John Miller? Grant looked uncomfortable. No comment. That's an ongoing case. Your body camera footage is missing. Any idea why? Grant stopped walking. Look, I was just doing my job. The bank called in a complaint. I responded. Did John Miller really assault you? Because I have video that suggests otherwise. Grant's face reddened. You don't understand the pressure we're under. We get complaints about homeless people all day long. Business owners, residents. Everyone wants them gone, but nobody wants to help them. What am I supposed to do? Before Lily could ask another question, Grant walked quickly to his car and drove away. Back at the public defender's office, Samantha was surprised to find a large envelope on her desk. The military record she had requested for John had arrived much faster than expected. Someone had expedited the request. She opened the envelope and began reading. At first it was standard information: enlistment date, training locations, deployment dates. But as she continued reading, her eyes widened. John Miller hadn't just been a regular Marine. He had been part of a special operations unit. And there was more. Much more. Attached to his service record was a citation for the Silver Star, one of the highest honors for valor in combat. Samantha read the citation with growing amazement. During a patrol in Afghanistan, John's unit had been ambushed. Under heavy enemy fire, John had carried 3 wounded Marines to safety, returning multiple times into the line of fire. Despite being wounded himself, he had continued to provide cover for the medical evacuation helicopter. His actions had saved the lives of his fellow Marines. There were other commendations, too. A Bronze Star, a Purple Heart, letters of recommendation from his commanding officers. This was not the record of an ordinary soldier. This was the record of a hero. Samantha sat back in her chair, stunned. The homeless man sitting in jail for pushing a police officer was one of the most decorated Marines of his generation, and nobody knew. She immediately called Lily. You need to see this, she said when Lily arrived at her office. But you can't write about it yet, not until after the hearing. Lily read through the records, her reporter's instinct telling her this was an even bigger story than she had imagined. Why do you think he never told anyone, she asked. He could have gotten help. The VA has programs specifically for decorated veterans. Samantha shook her head. I don't know, but I'm going to find out. The next morning, Samantha went back to the jail. This time, she brought John's military records with her. Why didn't you tell me? She asked him after they were seated in the interview room. John looked at the folder in her hands. Tell you what? That you're a war hero. Samantha opened the folder and turned it so John could see the Silver Star citation. That you saved 3 men under enemy fire. That you have a Silver Star, a Bronze Star, and a Purple Heart. John looked. Way. That was a different life, a different person. No, Mr. Miller, that was you. And it still is you. John was quiet for a long time. Finally he spoke, his voice soft. When I came back from my last tour, I was different. Couldn't sleep, couldn't be in crowds. Loud noises made me jump. The doctors called it PTSD. Did you get treatment? Tried to. But it was hard to keep appointments when I was working construction jobs. Then after the accident, I couldn't afford the medications anymore. Everything just fell apart. Samantha reached across the table and put her hand on John's arm. Mr. Miller. John, your preliminary hearing is in 3 days. With this information and the video of your arrest, I think we can get the charges dismissed. But I need to know if it's okay to tell the judge about your military record. John thought about it. Will it be public? Will people know? It will be part of the court record, yes, John sighed. I don't want people's pity. I don't want to be a symbol or a cause. But you do want justice, don't you? John nodded slowly. Yes, I want justice. Then let me use everything I have to get it for you. As Samantha left the jail, she knew the upcoming hearing would be unlike any other in her career. And she was right. No one in that courtroom, especially not the magistrate, was prepared for what they were about to learn about. The homeless man on trial. The day of the preliminary hearing arrived. The small courtroom was mostly empty. A few lawyers waited for their cases to be called. A couple of bored-looking clerks shuffled papers. In the back row, Lily Parker sat with her notebook ready. Samantha. Reeves waited at the defense table, her files neatly arranged. She had prepared carefully for this hearing. She had the video of John's arrest, witness statements from shop owners near the bank, and most importantly, John's military records. The door at the side of the courtroom opened and a bailiff led John in. He wore the orange jumpsuit of the county jail, but he had managed to make himself look presentable. His beard was neatly trimmed and his hair was combed. He walked with his back straight, shoulders squared. "You look good," Samantha whispered as John sat beside her. "Used to have to pass inspection," John replied quietly. "Old habits." The side door opened again and the bailiff called out, "All rise. Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Howard, Mercer presiding." Everyone stood as the judge entered. Judge Mercer was in his 60s with white hair and glasses. He had been a judge for over 20 years and had a reputation for being tough, but fair. "Be seated," Judge Mercer said as he took his place at the bench. He looked at the files in front of him. First case, County versus John Miller. Charges of resisting arrest and assaulting an officer. He looked up at the prosecution table. "Is the state ready to proceed?" Bill Foster, the young prosecutor, stood. "Yes, Your Honor." "And the defense?" Samantha stood. "Yes, Your Honor." "Very well. Mr. Foster, you may begin." Foster approached the podium. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward case. On May 15th, the defendant was loitering outside First National Bank. When Officer Peter Grant asked him to move, the defendant became aggressive and pushed the officer. This constitutes assault on a law enforcement officer and resisting arrest." Judge Mercer nodded. "Do you have witnesses?" "Yes, Your Honor. The state calls Officer Peter Grant." Officer Grant was sworn in and took the witness stand. He looked uncomfortable in his dress uniform. Foster began his questioning. "Officer Grant, please tell the court what happened on May 15th. Grant cleared his throat. "I received a call about a homeless individual refusing to leave the area outside First National Bank. When I arrived, I found the defendant, John Miller, sitting against the wall. The bank manager, Mr. Davis, told me that customers had complained, and he wanted Mr. Miller removed. What happened next? I asked Mr. Miller to move along. He was reluctant but started to gather his things. Then Mr. Davis came out and there was an exchange of words. Mr. Miller became agitated. When I tried to help him up, he pushed me in the chest." "Did you feel threatened by this push?" Grant hesitated. "It was enough force to make me step back." "No. Further questions, Your Honor." Judge Mercer turned to Samantha. "Your cross-examination, Ms. Reeves." Samantha approached the witness stand. "Officer Grant, how long have you known John Miller?" "I've seen him around the downtown area for maybe a year." "Has he ever caused trouble before?" "No, not really." "Has he ever been aggressive toward you or anyone else?" "No." "Officer Grant, is it true that your body camera footage from this incident is missing?" Grant shifted in his seat. "There was a technical issue with the camera." "That's convenient," Samantha said. "Fortunately, we have other video of the incident." She turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I'd like to present Defense Exhibit A, a video recorded by a bystander." The judge nodded and a court officer set up a small screen. The video played, clearly showing that John's push had been minimal, more of a reflexive movement than an aggressive act. When the video ended, Samantha continued. "Officer Grant, does that video accurately show what happened?" Grant looked down. "Yes." "So John Miller did not aggressively push you as stated in your report?" "It happened quickly. In the moment it felt more forceful." "No further questions, Your Honor." Judge Mercer looked thoughtful. "Mr. Foster, do you have any other witnesses?" Foster stood. "No, Your Honor, but the fact remains that the defendant did make physical contact with Officer Grant." "Ms. Reeves, your defense?" Samantha took a deep breath. This was the moment she had been preparing for. "Your Honor, my client admits he made contact with Officer Grant, but it was not assault and he was not resisting arrest. It was a reflexive action by a man who has seen and experienced things most of us can't imagine." She walked to the defense table and picked up a folder. I would like to submit Defense Exhibit B, my client's military service record. She handed copies to the judge and to Foster. Then she waited while Judge Mercer read through the documents. His expression changed from mild interest to surprise, then to something like awe. Ms. Reeves, is this accurate? He asked, looking up from the papers. Yes, Your Honor. Every word. Judge Mercer turned to John. Mr. Miller, please stand. John stood, his posture perfect, like he was standing at attention. Mr. Miller, this record indicates that you served 12 years in the United States Marine Corps, that you achieved the rank of Staff Sergeant, that you served 2 tours in Afghanistan and 1 in Iraq. Yes, Your Honor. It also states that you were awarded the Silver Star for valor in combat, is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. A murmur ran through the courtroom. The Silver Star was one of the highest honors a soldier could receive, awarded only for extraordinary heroism in combat. Judge Mercer read from the citation. Staff Sergeant John Miller, with complete disregard for his own safety, repeatedly exposed himself to enemy fire to rescue 3 wounded Marines. Despite being wounded himself, he continued to provide covering fire until all casualties were evacuated. The judge looked up. You were also awarded the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart. Yes, Your Honor. Judge Mercer removed his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. When he looked at John again, his expression had completely changed. Staff Sergeant Miller, why did the court not know about this until now? John stood straight, his eyes forward. It didn't seem relevant, Your Honor. That was a long time ago. Not relevant? Judge Mercer seemed genuinely surprised. Staff Sergeant, your service and sacrifice for this country are absolutely relevant. In the back of the courtroom, Lily Parker wrote furiously in her notebook. This was an even bigger story than she had imagined. Judge Mercer turned to Bill Foster. Mr. Foster, in light of this new information and the video evidence, does the state wish to reconsider its position? Foster looked flustered. He clearly hadn't expected this turn of events. Your Honor, while the defendant's military service is commendable, it doesn't change the fact that he made physical contact with a police officer. Judge Mercer frowned. Mr. Foster, are you seriously suggesting that we continue to prosecute a decorated war hero for what amounts to a reflexive gesture that caused no harm? Foster seemed to realize his mistake. The state requests a brief recess to reconsider its position, Your Honor. Granted, we'll take 15 minutes. As the judge left the bench, the courtroom buzzed with conversation. Samantha turned to John. Are you okay? John nodded, but he looked uncomfortable with the attention. I didn't want all this to come out. No. But it was necessary to show the judge who you really are. When court resumed, Bill Foster stood. Your Honor, after reviewing the evidence, the state moves to dismiss all charges against Staff Sergeant Miller. Judge Mercer nodded. Motion granted. He looked at John. Staff Sergeant Miller, you are free to go. But before you do, I have something to say. John stood again. Staff Sergeant, this court owes you an apology. More than that, this community owes you an apology. Your service and sacrifice deserve better than what you've received. That you could end up homeless, arrested, and sitting in our jail is a failure that falls on all of us. John didn't speak, but his eyes showed emotion for the first time. The judge continued. I'm not going to pretend that one court hearing can fix everything that's wrong with how we treat our veterans. But I can make sure that you get the help and respect you deserve from this day forward. He turned to his clerk. I want representatives from the VA here in my chambers in 1 hour. I want someone from the County Housing Authority as well. And someone from the mayor's office. The clerk nodded and hurried out. Judge Mercer looked back at John. Staff Sergeant, would you be willing to meet with these people? To let them help? You get the benefits and support you've earned? John hesitated. He had tried to get help before and had been lost in the system. But maybe with the judge's support, things would be different. Yes, Your Honor, I would. Judge Mercer smiled for the first time. Good. Case dismissed. As John left the courtroom with Samantha, reporters had already gathered in the hallway, alerted by someone about the decorated veteran who had been living on the streets. Cameras flashed. Questions were shouted. John stopped and looked at the crowd with a mixture of confusion and alarm. He wasn't used to being the center of attention, but as he stood there, straight and tall despite his worn clothes, he looked every inch the hero he was. And in that moment, everyone could see that the homeless man they had ignored on the street was actually a man of courage and honor who had sacrificed more for his country than most would ever know. The news about John Miller spread quickly through the town. Lily Parker's article appeared on the front page of the newspaper the next day. The headline read, "Decorated War Hero Found Homeless on Our Streets." The story included details of John's military service, his Silver Star, and how he had ended up homeless after an injury, and medical bills drained his savings. The public reaction was immediate and strong. People were shocked that a war hero had been living on their streets unrecognized and forgotten. Many were angry that the system had failed him so badly. John himself was overwhelmed by the attention. After his release from jail, he had gone with Samantha to retrieve his backpack from the police station. The small metal box with his medals was still there, wrapped in the old t-shirt just as he had left it. "What will you do now?" Samantha had asked him. John had shrugged. "Find a dry spot for tonight, I guess." But Samantha wouldn't hear of it. "You're coming home with me. I have a spare room. It's just until we figure something out." John had tried to refuse, but Samantha was determined. "You saved 3 Marines under enemy fire. I think I can handle having you as a house guest." Now, 2 days after the hearing, John sat in Judge Mercer's chambers. With him were Samantha, a VA representative named Mrs. Collins, someone from the Housing Authority, and the mayor himself. "Staff Sergeant Miller," Judge Mercer began, "these people are here to make sure you get the help and benefits you've earned. Mrs. Collins from the VA will start the process to get your disability benefits reinstated. Mr. Powell from Housing has information about veterans' housing programs, and Mayor Wilson wanted to be here personally." The mayor, a tall man with a firm handshake, leaned forward. "Staff Sergeant, I want to apologize on behalf of our city. We failed you. But I promise you, we're going to make this right." John wasn't used to being the center of attention. He felt uncomfortable with all these important people focusing on him. But he listened as they explained the help that was available. Mrs. Collins had already started the paperwork for his VA benefits. "With your service record and the documentation of your injury, we should be able to expedite the process," she explained. "You'll also qualify for VA health care for your back injury and any other health issues." Mr. Powell talked about a new apartment complex specifically for veterans. "You'll have your own place within 2 weeks," he promised. "In the meantime, we can arrange for you to stay at a hotel." The mayor added, "And several local businesses have reached out wanting to offer you employment once you're settled." John was overwhelmed. For 3 years he had been invisible on the streets. Now suddenly everyone wanted to help him. It didn't seem real. "Why now?" he asked quietly. "I tried to get help before. I filled out forms. I waited in lines. I made phone calls. No one helped then." The room fell silent. It was a fair question, and no one had a good answer. Finally, Judge Mercer spoke. "Because we failed you, Staff Sergeant. The system failed you. It shouldn't have taken a newspaper article and a court hearing for you to get the help you deserve. We can't change the past, but we can try to do better now." John nodded. He wasn't angry, just tired. Tired of struggling, tired of being invisible, tired of not having a place to call home. "I appreciate the help," he said. "I really do." After the meeting, as John and Samantha left the courthouse, they found a small crowd waiting outside. Word had spread that the homeless veteran would be there. Some people held signs that said, "Thank you for your service and welcome home, hero." John stopped at the top of the steps, surprised by the crowd. A man stepped forward from the group. He was in his 50s, wearing a Marine Corps cap. "Staff Sergeant Miller," the man said, saluting. "Jim Brady, former Corporal, 3rd Battalion." John returned the salute automatically. "We veterans need to stick together," Brady said. "A bunch of us are here to help with whatever you need." Others from the crowd came forward. A woman offered home-cooked meals. A man who owned a clothing store offered new clothes. A doctor volunteered to look at John's back injury for free. John was speechless. He had been alone for so long that he didn't know how to react to this outpouring of support. Lily Parker was there too, watching from a distance. She had followed John's story from the beginning, but now she saw it taking on a life of its own. It wasn't just about one homeless veteran anymore. It was about all the veterans who weren't getting the help they needed. In the weeks that followed, John slowly adjusted to his new life. He moved into the veterans' apartment complex. His VA benefits were approved. His back injury was treated by specialists who believed they could reduce his pain with proper treatment. The mayor kept his promise. He established a new city program to identify homeless veterans and connect them with services. He named it the Miller Initiative in John's honor. 1 month after the hearing, John sat in his new apartment, looking at his medals. He had placed them in a proper display case, a gift from a local veterans group. The Silver Star, the Bronze Star, the Purple Heart, symbols of a time when he had been someone who mattered. There was a knock at his door. It was Samantha. "How? Are you settling in?" she asked, looking around the small but clean apartment. "Getting used to having walls again," John said with a small smile. "And a bed. Still wake up at 5 a.m. though. Old habits. I have something for you," Samantha said, handing him an envelope. Inside was a letter. It was from a Marine named Kevin Martinez. The letter began, "You won't remember me, but you saved my life in Afghanistan." John's hands trembled as he read. Martinez had been one of the wounded Marines John had carried to safety under enemy fire. He had been looking for John for years to thank him, but had lost track of him after they both left the service. He had seen Lily's newspaper article and had immediately reached out. "He wants to meet you," Samantha said. "He lives just 2 hours away." John nodded, unable to speak. All these years he had carried the memories of that day, the fear, the noise, the weight of his wounded comrades. He had never known what happened to them after the medical helicopters took them away. The next day, John met Kevin Martinez at a local diner. Martinez walked with a slight limp, a reminder of his injuries, but he was healthy and whole. He had a wife and 2 children. He worked as a teacher. "I would have died out there if not for you," Martinez told John. "Every day I have with my family is because of what you did." They talked for hours, about the war, about coming home, about the struggles they had faced. Martinez had had his own battles with PTSD and adjusting to civilian life, but he had found help, had found his way. As they parted, Martinez hugged John. "You're not alone anymore, Sergeant. You've got family now." That evening, John attended his first meeting of a local veterans support group. He sat quietly at first, listening to others share their stories. When it was his turn, he simply said, "My name is John. I served in the Marines. For a long time after I came home, I felt lost, but I'm finding my way back now." The other veterans nodded in understanding. They had all been lost at some point. They had all struggled to find their way home. 6 months after his arrest, John started working part-time at the Veterans Resource Center that had been established in town. His job was to help other veterans navigate the system, to make sure they got the benefits they had earned, to make sure no one else fell through the cracks the way he had. Sometimes when he walked downtown, he would pass the spot outside the bank where he used to sit, the spot where he had been invisible for so long. He wasn't invisible anymore. People knew his name now. They knew his story. But John knew there were others out there, other veterans still living in the shadows, still struggling alone. His new mission was to find them, to help them, to bring them home, because no hero should ever be forgotten on the streets of the country they served.